What the hell is this? Is it some sort of the Russian motorcycle festival? Just count the number of those motorcycles totally ambushed during the recent Russian attack. What is happening in the Russian army? It is 100% Mad Max style real-life Fury Road. You can see they even modernized MTLB with those extra defense layers. And it seems like China supplied lots of the motorcycles to the Russian army because yes, most of them are the cheap China-made dirt bikes. And here is one more picture. Again, many of the motorcycles are lying with some of the armored vehicles. Probably Russians think that they are modern day knights on those motorcycles. Well, definitely two-wheel transport gives Russians more mobility, more speed, less vulnerability against mines, but in general Ukraine has all of the tools to get rid of those Russian attacks. I would understand if Russia used like 2 motorcycles that are really hard to spot or 1 motorcycle just to quickly move to some of the place and take a very small part of the ground. So little by little indeed they might scroll using the tactics because Ukrainian FPV drone operators need time to react. So first of all, the motorcycles should be spotted by the surveillance drone, and only after that Ukraine launches the FPV drone to hit the target. So mobility is definitely a key factor, but using them all at once together, well, it's just the easy target for any sort of artillery, FPV drones or Ukrainian machine guns. Everything might handle those motorcycles or the Russian infantry on motorcycles. This failed Russian attack happened in Vuhledar. Here you may see lots of their vehicles, so armored vehicles, at least 5 of those, maybe including tanks, and many of the motorcycles which we don't see on this image because it's zoomed out. And here's the main hotspot where all of the vehicles mostly were stopped. The place you saw in the previous images. Here's one more photo of it. And the classic Russian T-72 tank with a turret separation. Probably it hit the mine and was finished by the drone. What can I say? The useless mid-wave attacks continue. And we even have the satellite fire detection of the Russian convoy being just absolutely ambushed. It means that they were advancing from this lake or somewhere nearby, trying to reach Vuhledar, but were absolutely kaboomed. My friends, if you like the job that I do daily on YouTube, you may also consider supporting me on Patreon page. It is available just in the video description below. Thank you very much for your motivation and your kind support. Alright, so something is really going on in Sevastopol, Crimea. Somehow there was the airstrike on some of the Russian facility. Yet there is no information coming of what exactly was hit, but the kaboom was definitely huge. And here's the full video that one of the locals in Sevastopol filmed today, so the 1st of July. Here we have the kaboom. Quite a big one, by the way, at this long distance, such a high cloud. And later on there was even this one spotted close to that area too. Well, this one is beautiful. Previously there were numerous of the reports that Russia sent some extra air defense units to protect Crimea, but the protection doesn't work. Also, Russia itself dropped the heaviest aviation bombs they have on Belgrade, their own city. Several households were severely damaged by this kaboom. It isn't the first time that Russia does it in Belgrade, so locals should take care about their own military. The Russian officials at first reported that it was Ukraine, but later on confirmed that it was their aviation and it was done by accident. Quite a lot of accidents like that are happening in Russia recently. Also, there were several of the kabooms in occupied Makivka. Ukraine daily hits the Russian military infrastructure, especially in Crimea from what I may see. But still the Kerch Bridge is intact. Maybe Ukraine still doesn't have the permission to use ATACMS on that infrastructure object too, because obviously those military Ukrainian efforts are being coordinated with our allies. But nevertheless, unfortunately, Russia was successful in targeting Ukrainian military airport of Mirgorod, Poltava Oblast. This airport is located really far away from the front lines. Let me show you at first, before playing this video, the location of the Mirgorod airfield. It's available everywhere, even on Google Maps. So here we have the capital city of Kyiv, Poltava, and here is Mirgorod, and this is the border with Russia. And the distance here is more than 100 kilometers, I think that 130, something like that. But Russia was able to reach this military airfield using their surveillance drone Orlan 10. Those are quite cheap to produce and they have the long range. And later on Russia used their Iskander ballistic missiles to do the job. By the way, they use also the cluster munition warheads. Let's zoom into Mirgorod. So here's the city and this is the airfield, very close, and we see that on this map it definitely matches the video that we gonna watch. So here you can see absolutely the same apron like on Google Maps, so 100% it is Mirgorod airfield. And here are the clusters from the Russian Iskander shells. There was the fire on the airfield, so definitely Russia hit some of the infrastructure together with Ukrainian Sukhoi 27s. They claim that they got rid of 2 of the fighter jets and also 4 more were damaged. Well, at first I saw this picture, so definitely there is the burned down Sukhoi 27 and some of the airplanes are painted on the apron. I know that Russia does it. That's why at first I thought that it is the Russian military airfield, and at first I posted on my Telegram that Ukraine hit the Russian military airfield. I thought because of that stuff. But apparently Ukraine is also painting military fighter jets on the apron. It doesn't really help. I wonder who ordered to do so. It's better to build some sort of the protection hangar for the Ukrainian fighter jets, or at least hide the airplanes behind the walls. We call those caponiers. Russia sometimes does it. They build the wall from the ground, from the soil, or sometimes sand, concrete, whatever, but it might help to prevent the damage of the airplane because the shrapnel from clusters might not penetrate that wall and hit the airplane. So it wasn't done, and Ukraine has definitely the problem to protect the airplanes. It's not the first time that Russia is using their Iskander missiles to target this military airfield. And they also use the long-range cruise missiles to hit many of the other Ukrainian airfields. And Khmelnytsky airfield is under the constant strikes, but their Ukrainian defense works well, I mean air defense. So it is the main issue for the future F-16s in Ukrainian Air Force. If Russia is able to reach Ukrainian aviation that far behind the front lines, it is definitely an issue. Plus, Ukraine is really in lack of aviation. For this reason, our allies are promising to increase the supplements of the Patriot missiles and also Patriot systems to Ukraine. And you know guys, seeing those images, I still do not understand why Ukraine doesn't have the permission from the United States of America to use ATACMS long-range missiles to hit the Russian airfields, because Russia uses the analogs of ATACMS but with more longer range missile, and it is more powerful missile, let's be honest. The starting range of it is 500 kilometers, which is quite a lot. Plus this missile is very hard to intercept, and Ukraine basically is out of the tools to intercept all of the missiles in all of the military airfields. So I'm 100% sure that Ukraine should respond on those strikes equally, to use ATACMS to hit the Russian military airfields with shrapnel, with clusters, with everything to get rid of the Russian planes. If Russia is allowed to do it, why Ukraine isn't allowed? Well, this war is kind of strange, isn't it? The Ukrainian Air Force officer Ignat says that Ukraine didn't lose such many airplanes as Russia claims. At the same time, he is not saying about the exact number. Well, according to the Russian information, today Ukraine lost 6 of the airplanes totally, 2 completely burned down and 4 significantly damaged by shrapnel and will not be able to operate. I analyzed the video, and yes, there could be such a significant damage for Ukrainian Air Force because the clusters explode very close to those airplanes. But again, we need to see the closer image of those airplanes, whether they're really shrapneled or not. But 2 definitely were completely damaged, ruined, destroyed. Belarus again reported about the escalation from Ukrainian side, and Belarus sent their forces close to Ukrainian border near Zhytomyr Oblast. So because Belarus created a massive force close to the border, Ukraine sent their reinforcements to Zhytomyr Oblast. Several of the Kazakh vehicles and also Belarus-made MAZ vehicles and MRAPs were spotted in Zhytomyr today. This is Max Pro, I think the best vehicle we have so far. It has tremendous mine protection, and the purpose of the vehicle is basically to save the soldiers' lives. We're gonna speak more about it today, by the way. And we even have the short video of this convoy advancing towards Zhytomyr Oblast, close to Belarus border. So Belarus finally forced Ukraine to send some of the amount of forces to protect its border in Zhytomyr. Well, probably we don't see the full picture because this convoy was just filmed, and maybe at the same time Ukraine sent even more reinforcements to the place, or maybe just the small convoy was sent. But Belarus said that Ukraine sent reinforcements before. That's why they had to send their units close to the border, but I honestly believe Ukrainian side because there are multiple of the provocations from Belarus. And also Ukrainian army is using those marking signs on its army to operate in not in Belarus, but close to Belarus. So for sure there will be lots of the conspiracy theories, and you may understand why. Especially if we draw like this, yeah, conspiracy out of conspiracies. And this is the Russian Shebekina, Belgorod Oblast, where Russians just park their army vehicles very close to the local market with lots of the civilians. So they use those cars as some sort of the shields, but Ukraine has to do its job. That is why FPV drones, if they see the Russian army, they'll strike it. Like it happened with this vehicle, there were also Russian soldiers nearby. Too late for them to run away. Right, there are good news about F-16s. There is the final approval given by the European countries like Netherlands and Denmark to send those airplanes to Ukraine. It's the final bureaucratic step which was passed to see those airplanes in Ukraine, so the rest lies just with technical stuff. I mean logistics, training and everything. I think that those airplanes might arrive to Ukraine at the same time with Patriot systems. Russia continued to blame the United States of America and other allies like UK for providing the surveillance data to Ukrainian side. Usually drones or the airplanes like AVAX are flying in the neutral waters over the Black Sea, definitely scanning the ground for the Russian bases, for the Russian air defense systems, or the air for the Russian cruise missiles or the airplanes. Basically, the most of the Russian movements are uncovered, and the Russian military plans are just collapsing. For this reason, the new Russian defense minister said that they should handle this drone threat. How would they do it? I'm out of clue. Well, maybe they'll try to escalate. We're gonna see it in the nearby future, whether Russia is definitely strong to perform this step. For the Russian aviation, it's obviously a piece of cake to shut down, for example, this surveillance drone. As you remember, they already shut down the MQ Reaper drone with their airplane. They didn't use the weaponry for that, but it was some sort of the collision. But here, if they use their weaponry, it would be equal to the attack on the United States Army. There are more and more stories that Zelensky is not very excited about the general commander of Ukrainian army Syrsky. Coincidentally, the information comes from the same sources which report about the possible Zaluzhny's dismissment. Well, actually the rumors about the case start to appear 2 or 3 weeks ago, that Zelensky is not really satisfied with the general commander and his style of command of Ukrainian army. Well, I guess for most of the people it was understandable from the very beginning that Syrsky is not able to perform his duties by 100%. As for example, Zaluzhny was really competent in his actions. Because of Zaluzhny, really Kiev was saved and the Ukrainian counteroffensive didn't turn into total catastrophe. He stopped the Ukrainian army at the proper time. So my prediction, honestly, that Syrsky will also lose his position soon, maybe in months, maybe in 2 months, but we're gonna see it. Also, the shadow of the incompetent commander General Sodol lied on Syrsky as well, because it was basically the second general after Syrsky. And by the way, the Deep State Military Map source came out with a big article about the case. Probably I'm gonna post it on my social media, other social media, like for example Telegram and Patreon, where they analyzed most of the cases with crucial mistakes done by Ukrainian military command under this guy ruling. So there should be new reforms done in Ukrainian army. The sad thing that this general was appointed by President Zelensky as well, and by the time of that appointment our volunteers and our military say that do not do it, do not put this guy in charge, and you know the worst happened. I also remember the post of Sergei Sternenky. He also wrote that this guy is incompetent, it's better not to put him in command. He basically followed the Russian tactics, and Ukraine lost many of the IMX-10 tanks, yes, the wheeled tanks, which were sent to Ukraine by France. So he sent those tanks in a straightforward attacks, but those tanks, they do not have capabilities for that. So 1 year ago, between 5th and 7th of June 2023, Ukraine lost 12 of the tanks in straightforward attacks, plus lots of the soldiers. And by the time there were many of the videos start to appear in internet, how Ukrainian soldiers filming themselves asking everyone to help, because they basically were sent with one-way ticket as Russia does to their soldiers right now. So definitely it's awful general. So now everyone is calling for the open investigation of this general, and hopefully it will be done. The Azov regiment, which was also under command of this general, is not satisfied with his command as well. Basically, Azov started all of that, saying how bad Soldo general really is. And now you may read lots of the articles in internet, in Western media about the general. But the worst thing from what I see, that Ukrainian government didn't listen to our volunteers or soldiers who say that do not put this guy in charge, do not make him one of the main commanders of Ukrainian forces. He's not competent, he's just a butcher. But they didn't listen, they put him in command, and here we go. Lots of the casualties. Guys, I'm trying to tell you the truth on this channel, as many of the Ukrainian volunteers. It's not some sort of the Russian propaganda. I take this from the Ukrainian media and also from Ukrainian deep state team. They're very competent and confident about what they're saying. Also, Ukrainian Marines and the Azov regiment are confirming this information, so it's 100% correct. And it's absolutely great that this information is now open everywhere to the public. You see, this guy could be prosecuted for the high casualties. It has never been in Ukrainian army like that before. This situation is totally unimaginable in the Russian army, for example, where their commanders are totally immune. But in Ukraine, we have democracy. So from the lower level, but there is a massive wave to do something with those, and our society will not be calm about our heavy losses. So this guy should be absolutely prosecuted and finally punished, because there are lots of the evidence of his poor job and incompetence, which led to significant life losses. Yes, you may say that there is no war without the losses, but under his command, those losses were just tremendous and were done on purpose. So we also should investigate this guy of his possible connections with the Russian Federation, because there are rats in Ukrainian military command too, who spy for the Russian favor or perform the sabotage acts within the Ukrainian army, and this guy looks like saboteur. To the other news, it seems like Orban is coming to Kiev for the first time since the start of the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine. We know how controversial Orban sometimes is, but finally we see that he's not that strong to block everything for Ukraine. Recently he even agreed for the NATO initiatives which are made to support Ukrainian military. And the last year Hungary voted for the big support bill for Ukraine. We're speaking about 50 billion euros. I think that Orban has his Orban behavior just to show off in front of his electorate who always vote for him. Very similar to Donald Trump actually. They may say everything, but their actions are totally different in many of the cases. So we'll see what he might say tomorrow in Kiev, because it is a report that he is going to Kiev. We have the information about it from the Financial Times, so we'll see if it is trustworthy. By the way, Hungary will take the presidency of the European Union Council, and Vladimir Zelensky congratulated Hungary on its EU presidency. I wish them success, he said. Well, after all, I don't think that it's very terrible for Ukraine. No, it's a little more complicated than usual, but Hungary is not that powerful. Orban just speaks too much, but finally he agrees to most of the initiatives coming from the European Union, NATO, whatever. Alright, about the Ukrainian MRAPs, Russia doesn't have those specific vehicles with that tremendous and robust defense. Yeah, on this video we must see that vehicle is totally demolished at the first look. But the capsule itself is okay, the soldiers inside, all of them survived. This vehicle was built especially to withstand the powerful explosions from the mines. At first it is very high over the ground and it has the robust armor bottom. And the basic function of the vehicle is to transport the army personnel in the most effective and safe manner. And if this vehicle hits mine or it is targeted by something, it usually survives in most of the cases. Well, I mean not the vehicle itself, but this very important compartment for the crew. And this is the Russian BTR, which probably hit the mine or something happened in the front part. The bottom part of the vehicle was penetrated. So it might look more or less okay, but the damage to the vehicle is tremendous. Everything just goes inside the infantry compartment. While Ukraine also has to use Soviet-made vehicles, like for example this MT-LB, which is surrounded by the anti-drone mesh. But what can we do? Ukrainian army was the Soviet ones, so there are still many of those vehicles in Ukraine. Also Bulgaria, I think, sent their BTRs and other armored vehicles to Ukraine, also Soviet-made. But the American-made vehicles, I think, one of the best out there. I mean AMRAPs. And if we speak about the infantry fighting vehicles, Bradleys are much better than any other Russian BMPs. But what else Russia is using to, well, China-made golf carts. And this one was hit by Ukrainian FPV drone, and imagine there were 8 people on board. 8 people. And based on this shrapnel, you may understand what happened to them. Well, I have the image showing what happened to them, but I cannot publish it on this platform. Russians are riding motorcycles, Russians are using the open-air vehicles to get the fresh air, but at the same time, because of that also they have severe losses. And this video shows how the Russian soldiers take care about their hygiene, drinking not very clean water from the local swamp. What do they do here? They try to filter the water using some sort of the tissues which they place between those bottles. And they think that it should work. It tells a lot about the Russian army supplies, which as we can see mostly absent. Yes, not everywhere, but here in specific I know what point of the front lines this really is. But they're definitely struggling. There is no opportunity for them to obtain simple fresh water. And obviously those conditions lower morale significantly. The Russian army and morale? Yeah, kind of tasty. Ugh. But we may admit that in some of the directions the Russian positions are well maintained, well made, and they have absolutely everything. So this is the Russian command center and also barracks underground near the Kharkiv region. But I think that it's still on the Russian territory. You see, they have table, they have phone for connection, they have absolutely everything, including some of the supplies. But closer to the front lines, it's absolutely terrible. Do you think that definitely this is the place for the Russian soldiers? Well, no. This is just the place for the Russian officers, the Russian command. They even have this wonder machine, the washing machine. It was the reason for the ordinary Russian soldier to go for the war in Ukraine, then the war had just started. Now obviously Russians earn lots of the funds from the Putin's army. Russia pays a lot, but the Russian soldiers usually do not see their salary for more than 1 month. And there are more and more advertisements and billboards appear in Russia. Please, Russians, voluntarily go to the Russian army. We don't want to announce a new massive mobilization because we are scared of you, of your general mood. That's why please go. We're gonna pay you. We're gonna pay. You'll never see those money because you'll be dead, but please go and serve in the Russian army. Only 18 plus, you see? How brave this Russian soldier is. He's not drinking from the swamp water probably, right? Or not. Alright, again, the United States politics. I know that you like this topic. Well, the United States of America Supreme Court rules that Trump has significant criminal immunity. Not the total complete immunity, but it applies on his official term, from what I understood. But still, there are many of the criminal cases of Donald Trump which are now under investigation that were taking place outside of his term in president's office. So we'll see how it goes after all, but Trump himself already said that it's the day of justice for the United States jurisdiction system. Well, if something goes on in favor of politician, he or she would obviously say that, alright, this is good. If something against them, well, no, it's the system is bad, everything is worse than ever, as for example Donald Trump said about the decision of the New York court where he was officially stated as a convicted felon. So after all, definitely it's the big dirty politician game. Speaking about Trump personally, I don't like that guy. I'm not a Trump supporter. I don't understand how people might support or even glorify that guy. He's just an artistic politician. He follows his own goals. And he will never make America great again, but people are just fooled. Well, maybe it's just the lack of the education in general, but I don't support Joe Biden either. I think that he is too clumsy for the president's position too, but I would vote for Joe Biden, simply because he might support Ukraine and Donald Trump might seize all of the support. That's what I'm scared of. And about the internal policy of the United States, I don't think that it will change dramatically in any of the case. But for Ukraine, it's important of who is going to be the next United States president. That's why I'm here telling you about it. So Supreme Court now tells that Trump is not going to be persecuted for many of the cases, so there are more chances for him not to sit in a jail and take part in a president's run. Yeah, the current politician culture in America is terrible, actually. Alright, now let's go for the front lines update. Unfortunately, today Russia took more ground. They advanced in 4 of the villages: Telmahivka, Makiivka, Yevgenivka and Nevelske. Nevelske is under fire for a very long time. So let's zoom into Nevelske and check out the advancement. Yes, today it was quite a big one. They took those fields under control and partially they entered the small settlement. About Yevgenivka, it's over here. It's the big Russian assault which they now perform in this place. However, the advancement is not that big for today. Ukraine holds Russians a lot with the resources it currently has. And Novoselivka is here, and you may see that there is just a gray area change, that's it. At the same time, Russia tries to reach the border of Luhansk Oblast, so they have this new assault vector, and they move towards this river, so still Russia has numerous of the resources, and at the same time it's interesting they're struggling with those. It might sound strange, but it is what it is. They're just grinding their military in those poor conditions, in those stupid mid-waves, but they take some of the ground sometimes, as you can see over here. For Russia to advance in such small distances, they lose hundreds of men. So it just cannot continue for a very long time. Russia is searching for the new army men to feed their army with more meat. If Ukraine had all of those resources, it would use it in different way. And now, my friends, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. As usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.